Alright, I'm gonna interrupt the normal video and do something that actually is scripted. The reason I'm doing this is because I couldn't find a good way when I reviewed the videos to go over the CUDA installs and uninstalls properly without actually comparing them all to each other. Because depending on which one you use, your install and uninstall or your method of switching between different CUDA versions might be different. So rather than uninstall a broken CUDA, I'm just gonna go over all the methods to uninstall each CUDA and methods to switch back and forth. Now, even if I'm using this particular video in the section where I'm not using Conda, I'm gonna just quickly go over something with Conda. I don't actually use Conda for CUDA because even if it could work in a development environment, I just have trouble with it when I try to compile other people's code. So I'm just gonna uninstall it and kind of use either the apt method or the run file. But before doing that, I just want to quickly show you, if you do use Conda, or do you want to use Conda for your own environment, if you actually go to Anaconda and search, you can either search for CUDA or even CUDA toolkit, and you'll end up with a list of Conda packages and which repository they're from. The main one, Anaconda, NVIDIA, Conda Forge. And if you look, there's version numbers. If you click the more, there's actually also older versions. Let me go back and just type CUDA and search for that. Let's say I wanted from SK test 12.8, or from NVIDIA, the latest 13.1, or from the main repository, 13, not 13.1. I could go into my Conda environment, make sure you're in the right Conda environment. In this case, I'm in PY313, which is something I'm using in the Conda video. And just type Conda install. I'm just going to type CUDA, and you can either use the 2 colons method, or I just type -c. And what was it? Was it main? If I type main, see if this allows me to do it. I know I had the strict setting for the channels. I keep saying repositories, but I mean channels. And you can see that it is, in this case, well, there's a long list of things, going to try to install CUDA 13.0 from the main channel. But because Conda is managing all of my packages that I install through Conda, it actually does want to make some changes to some related packages. So if you want to do that, you can. Just type yes, and it'll install everything. I'm going to pause the video, let this finish installing. Okay, and that's done inside this Conda environment. And I guess typically you would, make another Conda environment if you wanted another CUDA in your Conda environment. Because let's see what happens if we try to install another one from NVIDIA in the same Conda environment. So I'm just going to change the main channel to NVIDIA. And let Conda work itself out with what it needs. All requested packages already installed. Well, how about from Conda Forge? It says already installed. But if we type Conda list CUDA inside this environment, it's 13.0. It's not 13.1. So looking in here, there's different versions. So it's probably just thinking we want 13.0, even though we want 13.1. Well, can I do 13.1? Oh no, sorry. Can I do, let's do it from NVIDIA, equals 13.1. So let's see what the list says here. The following packages will be removed. Okay. So it wants to update a bunch of things. And up here, 13.1. Okay, and it's done. So if we conda list cuda, what do we have here? 13.1 from NVIDIA. So where'd our 13.0 go? I think it was replaced. What I typically normally do is, let's see here, Conda, I would uninstall this. So Conda uninstall CUDA, yes to uninstall, and let's do a Conda list CUDA, no packages with Conda. I would typically manage my CUDA in the main environment or outside of the Conda environment. So let's go ahead and take a look at that. Okay, I'm on another machine running two WSLs, and by the way, what I'm looking at here should apply to most bare metal Linux machines, though keep in mind this is on Ubuntu and it might be different on different distributions. But unless I say it's WSL specific, most of this should work. So on the left side, I have CUDA 13.1 installed via apt, and I have on the right side 13.1 installed via the downloaded run file from NVIDIA. Now, for the most part, for the CUDA toolkit, they install the same thing. There's some slight differences. The apt version also installs in the opt folder NVIDIA's Insight, which you might not need for compilation. This is only like, I guess if you're developing for CUDA and you need a lot of like statistics or fine tuning. Oops, that's not right. User local. Okay. On the run file, it does not install. In fact, by default, sometimes there is no folder. Let me refresh my screen just to make sure. There's an option, but I can't get to it through my Windows Explorer. Let's see here. Sudo ls opt. If you look, there's nothing in that folder. It returned nothing. So going back to that user local, the other difference is the run file version. Oops, I'm in the wrong place. User local. The run file version creates not just the folder CUDA 13.1, but a symbolic link L CUDA that points to that folder. So the symbolic link CUDA points to the folder. Let's see what happens in the one installed from apt. Let's see, we have both a CUDA 13.1 folder and two symbolic links instead of one, a CUDA and a CUDA 13. Let's see what those do. CUDA goes to alternatives CUDA, and then CUDA 13 goes to alternatives CUDA 13. So I think in the video earlier, I believe I had already looked at the GCC compiler versions and demonstrated how the update alternatives command can let you manage the soft links to point to any particular version of the compiler, and how you could use the update alternatives config to select which version you're using. That command also works for CUDA, but the benefit is if you install CUDA via apt, although you get the extra Insight installed that you might not need, you actually automatically get the update alternatives. So right now I only have one version of CUDA, but let's go ahead and install a second version. Look at this. We're gonna sudo apt-get. Well, we don't need 13.1 because it's already there. It'll probably just skip it. But I'm going to install a whole bunch of CUDAs, and I'm going to automatically say -yes so that it just installs. So we're going to get CUDA 13.0, 12.8, and 12.9. I'm going to hit enter, and it's just going to start installing them all. In the meantime, I'm going to install one more run file on the right side. I think I downloaded them in the home folder. I did not. Let's go ahead and download another one. So we have 13.1 already, and I'm going to get 12.8 because it's a common one. So downloading on the right side, 12.8, while the left side is automatically installing 3 other versions of CUDA at once. All right, the run file is downloaded, and I am going to run it. It's going to take a minute for it to load. There are command line switches that you can use with this by typing --help in case you needed to script this, but I'm just going to run it so we can see and choose some options. Now, although the run file I mentioned earlier doesn't install into the options folder, if you needed the full insight, they're actually from NVIDIA's website. Just like you can download the run file, you can actually navigate and search for the insight run file and download and install that. So that is an option if you needed it. All right, so the run file has started. I'm going to type accept, and you can see that there's the options. Of course, you're going to install the toolkit. You can, if you wanted to, you could uncheck the demo and the documents. It doesn't by default install the driver here. You shouldn't install the driver in WSL anyway because it's going to break your connection to your Windows driver. One thing that I found out, and I think I mentioned it in another part of the video, is that for some reason I broke my install where I didn't have the uninstall script. And what I found out is, I think it's in the documentation, if you uncheck this, you're not going to get the uninstall file. So just like in my CUDA 13.1, which I installed earlier, under bin, there's a CUDA uninstaller. If you wanted to uninstall the run file, you would run this. However, if you unchecked these because you wanted to save space, like I did, and you hit install, and by the way, it's going to update the soft link. I'm going to say yes. If you do that, if you uncheck the documentation, it's not going to install the CUDA uninstaller file, so then you won't have a way to uninstall unless you obtain that file. So anyway, let's wait for this thing to finish installing. All right, the left side is still installing those 3 other versions of CUDA from apt, or using apt. And on the right side, my run file for 12.8 finished installing. Now, if we take a look inside the folder for 12.8, under bin, we don't have a CUDA uninstaller. And again, that's because we unchecked, I believe it was the documentation. For some reason, it's tied together. So let's say, for instance, you installed all your CUDAs with that unchecked. Then you wouldn't have an uninstaller in either of these folders. Okay, so both installs are done. Let me go back to the CD user local folder. Do a list. You see 12.8 and 13.1 and the CUDA link right here. And if we do a check on that CUDA link, it's now pointing to 12.8. So I know in an earlier video I talked about setting the CUDA home folder directly to the CUDA folder with the version number. Excuse me, the version number. But you could, if you have multiple versions of CUDA, or maybe you should, set it to the CUDA soft link instead. So if we go into the home and your username and look at your bash rc file, at the end there's a few variables you can set. I'm just going to copy and paste it so I don't have to type everything out. For example, right here at the end, instead of putting the complete path with the version number, if you just set CUDA home to CUDA, it'll use a soft link and then it'll add it to the path, and it'll also create the LD library path. So let's go ahead and save that, save, and exit. And which one was this? This one was Ubuntu 2. So I actually have to start Ubuntu 2. PowerShell, run as administrator. Put this in this top corner, screen a little bigger. WSL-D Ubuntu 2. Goes back in. There we go. Let's go back to user local just to be consistent. And then if I echo, let's say path, I now have it going to user local CUDA. And then if you wanted to switch from, let's see here, ls, again, looking at the link, wanted to switch from 12.8 back to 13, you would remove sudo remove the CUDA link, and then create a new one, user local CUDA -13.1 CUDA. Did I not type sudo? No, I did not. Sudo. And then if we look at the link again, it's pointed to 13.1. So that's how you could do that if you installed it manually with the run files. If you look at the left side of the screen where I installed a bunch of CUDA versions using the apt repository, I have, well, let's look at it inside of our Explorer because it's easier to look at. 12.8, 12.9, 13.13, 1. I have the CUDA link right here. And if we look at that, al CUDA, it's an update alternative. If we look at sudo update alternatives config CUDA, type my password, we see that we have 12.8, 12.9, 13.0, and 13.1 all automatically set with a priority number, and 13.1 is the active link. This was automatically created using the apt install, so we don't have to do anything. Now if we actually type a number, like let's say we wanted 12.8, we just type the number 1 for the selection, 1. There we go. And then how do we see it? Because it just goes to the, well, we just type config again. And we can see that the asterisk, I don't know if you can see that right here, is next to 1, which means that that is the active version. So I'm just going to Control-C to get out of that. And don't know if there's anything else to talk about for CUDA installs, but basically I would just, if you're going to use multiple versions of CUDA, it's probably easier to use the apt installs. If you wanted to uninstall any of the apt installed versions, you could sudo apt purge, let's see here, CUDA toolkit, let's say, oops, 12.9, and say yes there. If we refresh, we still have 12.9. We probably would have to sudo apt auto remove, and yes, and then refresh. Oh, it's still going. Let's wait for that. Okay, let's see if 12.9 is still there. Refresh. 12.9 is gone. And if we look at the update alternatives, 12.9 is no longer in that list. Now in the run file installs, you would normally go into the cuda folder's bin folder or bin directory and use the cuda-uninstall script. But if, like me, you've installed it without the documents, there is not going to be a uninstall. So user local, let's say cuda13 bin. This one has an uninstaller because I installed it, but for example, on 12.8 bin, there's no uninstaller because I installed it without the documents. So let's say, for example, you installed all of them and all without the documents, and they all don't have the uninstaller. You should be able to, so let me go back to my home folder, and that's where I have the run files, ls-l. They're not executable. Let's set the 13.1 to executable. Plus X. Oops. Of course, spell things right. There we go. Okay, we should be able to use the extract file, or the extract command. Oh, I think I need to make the folder first. Let's make a folder called temp. And then let's extract. I think we need to type the full path. Okay, the file's kind of big, so it might take a little while. Not sure if there's a way to just extract that one file. But anyway, let's give it a couple minutes. Okay, it's done, and let us see what we have here. We've got in the temp folder a bunch of cuda packages. Now this is not the way it installs in the cuda folder. These are separate packages. But if we look in bin, this only has 2 different uninstaller files. I don't know if we can just move this. Let's move this to just the home folder. And it's no longer there. Let's back up and let us just remove the whole temp folder. We don't need it anymore. We have the uninstaller file. Let us now sudo cuda-uninstaller. So we're going to run the uninstaller file directly from our home folder. You can see that it actually lists. Oh look, cuda documentation was installed for 13.1. That's why that folder actually had the uninstaller file. But for 12, it wasn't there. If we wanted to uninstall any particular version or clean up, let's say, the documents, we could just choose them and it'll uninstall. So this will leave 12.8 and delete 13.1. So I'm just going to leave this cuda-uninstaller script in my home folder because I can use it in the future. Okay, I don't think there's much else to discuss here. Let me just verify by refreshing that. Let's see, I installed 13.1. If you look in here, it's just the remnants of the Insight system, which really I can just remove. I'm just gonna delete that. Oh, doesn't want to delete. It's being held by something. How did this get in there? In any case, I should be able to just restart this and remove those. If you look at the cuda, let's see here. Let me go back into that folder. WSL cuda. Just make sure that this is pointing to the right place, and it's not. So obviously you'd have to update that, which is why the apt, I think, installs are a little easier to deal with. I'd have to remove cuda, sudo remove cuda, and then ln-s user local cuda-12.8 cuda permission. Of course, I'm always forgetting sudo. And then if we look at the link, it's not pointing to 12.8, so that works out fine. And just to recap on the apt installs, it's managed by the update alternatives, so that's automatic. So anytime we uninstall one, it just fixes itself. All right, back to the regular video.